Black CEO ordered to use economy line. Seconds later, she grounded the entire flight. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Step aside, ma'am. Economy lines that way. The words hit harder than the echo of rolling suitcases on the marble floor. She looked up calm, composed, not a hint of shock, just that familiar stillness that comes when you've heard this tone too many times before. Around her, the air conditioning hummed against the tension, and a few travelers glanced over, half curious, half complicit. The agent's badge gleamed under the terminal lights like a tiny symbol of misplaced power. It was only 7:42 a.m. at Gate C-12, but the day had already drawn its battle line. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Dr. Maya Holt. She stood there, passport in hand, boarding pass for seat, 2 amperes printed clearly, but to the gate attendant, she was invisible in plain sight. The woman behind the counter didn't even check the name. She just tilted her chin toward the back of the line, where passengers in hoodies and backpacks shuffled under the economy sign. I said, "That way," she repeated, sharper this time, like politeness was charity. Maya blinked once, slowly. She wasn't dressed to impress, no heels, no designer bag, just a gray travel suit and sneakers. Intentional. She'd built a company that owned contracts with this airline. Today, she was flying to D.C. to finalize a federal logistics deal worth $32 million. But at this moment, all that mattered to the agent was that she didn't look first class. Behind her, a businessman whispered, "You people always try to cut lines." Another smirked, phone in hand, already recording, waiting for her to snap. But she didn't. She stepped forward just enough for the camera to catch her calm profile. "My ticket says Group 1, she said quietly. "Your uniform says respect. Maybe check which one you're wearing today." The line went still. The attendant's cheeks flushed red, but she held her ground. "If you keep holding up boarding, I'll call security." Maya's eyes didn't move from hers. "Then you'll have to explain why you called security on a paying passenger when you're about to find out signs your department's paychecks." A murmur rippled through the line. 2 rows ahead, a young black flight attendant named Jordan looked up from scanning passes, his eyes narrowing with recognition. He knew that name. He'd seen it on the corporate memo that circulated weeks ago. New partnership, major stakeholder. He hesitated, watching the moment tighten like a wire. The gate agent rolled her eyes. "Ma'am, I don't care who you are. You need to move." Maya tilted her head, voice almost kind. "That's the problem. You don't care who anyone is until it costs you your job." The man filming muttered, "Oh, she's one of those." The phrase cracked something deeper, something years old. In her mind, a memory replayed. Age 19, first time flying alone, told to step aside while they verified her ticket. The same tone, same look. Back then, she obeyed. Today, she owned the plane. And yet here it was again, the quiet test of worth disguised as policy. She took a slow breath, her reflection caught in the gate glass, steady, unmoving. "You know," she said softly, "it's funny how respect always requires ID." Her assistant's voice buzzed through her earpiece. "Dr. Holt, we're ready whenever you are." Maya's gaze never left the agent. "Good," she whispered, "because the lesson's about to begin." And with that, she reached for her phone and opened the airline's executive control app, the one no passenger was supposed to have. The gate lights flickered once, then again. Boarding paused. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. And the only sound left was the announcement chime echoing through the terminal, followed by a single line on the PA system. "All operations temporarily suspended at Gate C-12 per executive command." The agent froze. Maya didn't move. Her voice, calm as the morning sky, cut through the silence. "Next time you tell someone to step aside, make sure you're not standing in their way." The air around Gate C-12 felt frozen, like time itself was holding its breath. Passengers stopped mid-motion. Luggage wheels stilled, and even the distant chatter from nearby gates faded under the announcement that had just echoed through the terminal. All operations temporarily suspended at Gate C-12 per executive command. The gate attendant, whose name tag read Janet, stood stiff behind her counter. Her face had drained of color, but pride fought panic in her eyes. "That was some kind of glitch," she said quickly, forcing a laugh that sounded brittle. "Everyone, please stay calm. There must be a system error." Maya did not speak. She simply held her phone at her side, the screen dimmed, her expression unreadable. The crowd, however, was shifting. The businessman who had mocked her earlier now stepped back, glancing between the flashing gate sign and the woman who had just stopped an entire boarding process with one tap. "What just happened?" someone whispered. "Did she really do that?" Maya turned slightly toward Janet, her tone calm but firm. "Do you want to try that sentence again? Maybe start with, 'I apologize.'" Janet blinked, defensive. "Look, I was just following policy." Maya's voice lowered but carried through the air like a slow drumbeat. "Policy does not include humiliation. I asked you to check my ticket. You chose to assume." A few people in line murmured in agreement. One man quietly said, "She told you she was Group 1. But before Janet could respond, a young attendant hurried over from the side gate. Jordan, the same one who had recognized Maya's name earlier. His voice trembled slightly but held conviction. "Miss Holt," he said, addressing her formally, "I believe there has been a mistake." Janet snapped at him. "Jordan, stay out of this. We have protocol." He stood taller, his eyes steady. "Protocol does not mean prejudice." The sentence landed like a gavel strike. Several heads turned. A mother holding a toddler whispered to her husband, "He is right." Janet's composure cracked. "You do not know what you are talking about." Jordan took a small step forward. "I know exactly what I am talking about. The system flagged her name with an executive ID. That means she has corporate clearance higher than any of us." Gasps rippled through the gate area. Maya did not react. Her silence was heavier than anger. She finally spoke, calm but absolute. "Jordan, thank you. Please step back. This is between me and her." Jordan obeyed, but his presence had shifted the energy of the room. There was no longer one woman standing alone. There was awareness. Janet swallowed hard, her voice thin now. "You cannot just walk in here and pull rank because you think you are important." Maya tilted her head, eyes unflinching. "I do not think I am important. I know what I built, and I know when someone disrespects it." The gate door lights flickered again, a quiet reminder of who controlled what. Maya lifted her phone once more and tapped a command. Within seconds, a different voice came through the PA system, calm, professional, authoritative. "Attention Gate C, 12 staff. Dr. Maya Holt of Holt Aerodynamics is now present. Please comply with all executive safety directives. Corporate supervision has been initiated." Every word was confirmation. Every syllable erased Janet's denials. Maya watched the shock spread, but she did not smile. She turned instead to the passengers who had watched everything unfold. "You all saw what happened," she said evenly. "And I hope you remember it the next time someone tells you to get in a different line." One man clapped softly, then another, and soon the quiet applause spread like a ripple across the boarding area. It was not loud. It was steady. Maya turned back to Janet one last time. "You could have treated me with respect," she said, her voice calm but final. "Instead, you treated me like a problem. Now you are part of one." Janet lowered her gaze, words gone, power gone. The PA chime sounded again, softer this time. The system was waiting for Maya's next command. She exhaled slowly and said, "Resume boarding," but not until she steps aside. Janet froze in place, her shoes anchored to the floor as if the ground beneath her suddenly turned to ice. Passengers were still recording, their phones raised high, trying to capture the moment a simple gate attendant had been ordered to step aside by a woman whose power reached far beyond the terminal walls. Maya stood still, calm, her posture steady, as if the entire chaos around her had been rehearsed for this exact moment. The gate remained locked, the digital screen flashing, "Boarding delayed" in bold red letters. Jordan took a cautious step closer, his voice lower now. "Dr. Holt, corporate command just came through the system," he said, glancing at his handheld device. "They want to confirm your next action." Maya nodded once. "Confirm clearance, then unlock the gate manually. No one else touches the system until my team arrives." Janet's jaw tightened. Your team? Who do you think you are? Maya turned her head slowly, her voice firm but controlled. The person who makes sure this airline still exists tomorrow morning. The silence that followed was heavy enough to drown the hum of the overhead vents. A middle-aged man near the front muttered, She means business. Another whispered, That is corporate-level authority. But amid the crowd, one passenger in a Navy business suit stepped forward. Excuse me, he said, his tone impatient. I have a connection to catch. Can we stop playing power games? Maya turned to him, unoffended. You will get there, she said. But today, you are witnessing why some of us have to work twice as hard just to stand in the same line. The man's face softened. He nodded quietly and stepped back. The weight of her words lingered. Then, a sharp voice cut through the air from behind the counter. Security's on the way, Janet snapped, desperate to regain control. You can explain this to them. Maya's gaze didn't waver. Good. They should hear it too. A moment later, 2 uniformed airport security officers arrived. Both men, both cautious. Ma'am, one began carefully, we were told there was a disturbance. Before Maya could speak, Jordan intervened. No disturbance, he said clearly. Just a correction in progress. The taller officer frowned. And who exactly is in charge here? Maya raised her phone slightly, showing the corporate seal glowing on her screen. That would be me, she said. Dr. Maya Holt, CEO of Holt Aerodynamics, the company that services your aircraft engines. And the airline you are standing in front of is one of my clients. The second officer blinked, clearly thrown off. Ma'am, we had no idea. You were not supposed to, Maya said softly. Bias rarely sends an invitation first. The first officer looked at Janet, whose face had gone pale. Is this true? He asked. Janet stammered. She is making it sound like, but she stopped when Jordan handed over his handheld screen, displaying the executive verification tag with Maya's name and company credentials. The officer read it, nodded, and stepped back. All clear, he said to his partner. No further action required. A murmur of satisfaction spread through the gate area. The passengers had seen enough. They knew what had happened and what it meant. Maya's assistant called through her earpiece again. Dr. Holt, the airline board just confirmed. They are observing remotely. Maya exhaled slowly, letting the reality of that sentence hang in the air. Then let them watch. She looked back at Janet, her tone calm, not cruel. You could have done your job with respect. You chose pride instead. And now you will explain it to the people who sign your checks. Janet's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The officers stepped aside as Maya handed her passport and ticket to Jordan. Please continue boarding, she said gently. Start with Group 1. Jordan nodded, scanning her ticket without hesitation. Welcome aboard, Dr. Holt, he said. And for the first time since the morning began, she smiled, small, measured, and earned. Behind her, the terminal buzzed back to life, but the air felt different now. Every witness had seen what quiet authority looked like. Every recording would carry the same truth. Dignity was not up for debate. As Maya walked down the jet bridge toward the plane, the gate doors closed softly behind her, sealing not just the flight, but a lesson that would echo far beyond Gate C-12. Inside the aircraft, the air felt charged, the kind of tension that comes when something larger than the moment hangs unseen in the room. Passengers whispered as Maya walked down the narrow aisle, her calm presence cutting through the unease like a steady current. Every eye followed her, not because she was loud, but because she carried silence like armor. She reached her seat in first class 2 amperes by the window and placed her bag neatly under the seat in front of her. Across the aisle, a middle-aged flight attendant named Carla Simmons glanced up, confusion flickering in her expression as she whispered to another crew member. That is her, the attendant murmured, her voice trembling with recognition. The one the board mentioned last month. She owns part of the engine contract. The captain's voice broke over the intercom, routine and steady. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We will be departing shortly. Please remain seated as we resolve a brief procedural delay. Maya knew that tone. It was the sound of corporate damage control disguised as professionalism. As she fastened her seatbelt, she could still see the reflection of the gate outside. Janet stood near security, flanked by 2 supervisors, her shoulders hunched, her headset removed. For the first time, Maya felt something close to sadness, not for Janet's humiliation, but for the waste of it, a career undone by arrogance. She leaned her head slightly against the window, her reflection catching the early light. The hum of the aircraft blended with the memory surfacing uninvited. She was 24 again, standing in another airport, holding another ticket that someone refused to believe was hers. That day, they had told her to stand aside while they verified her payment. They made her wait until every other passenger had boarded. When she finally entered the plane, her seat was gone. They said it was a mix-up. She knew it was not. That memory never left her. It was the blueprint for every boundary she refused to let stand unchallenged. Back in the present, the cabin lights dimmed slightly as a supervisor approached her row. He was in his 50s, composed, trying to look authoritative. "Dr. Holt," he began carefully, "on behalf of the airline, I would like to extend our sincerest apology for the misunderstanding at the gate." Maya looked up, her gaze calm but cutting. "You mean the discrimination?" He hesitated, swallowing the corporate phrasing he had rehearsed. "Yes, ma'am. We are reviewing the situation immediately. The staff involved will face accountability." Maya nodded once. "Good. But remember, accountability is not a press release. It is a policy. Make sure it becomes one." The man nodded quickly and retreated toward the front. The attendant, Carla, lingered for a moment longer. "Dr. Holt," she said softly, "I just want to say, I have worked for this company for 17 years, and I have seen things like this too often. What you did today, it matters." Maya turned her head slightly. "Then make sure it matters tomorrow, too." The plane grew quiet again. Outside, the morning had shifted to a hazy gold. Her assistant's voice came softly through the earpiece. "Corporate confirmed the incident is under review. The board wants your statement when you land." Maya's voice was steady. "They will get it, but I am not here for a statement. I am here for reform." As the engines began their low roar, passengers settled in, unaware that the woman in seat 2 Amperes was about to change more than a flight schedule. She looked out the window one last time toward the terminal where it all began and whispered almost to herself, "Grounded flights can take off again. People have to choose to." The cabin door closed, the seatbelt sign chimed, and in that moment of silence before takeoff, it was clear the real journey had just begun. The engines roared to life, but the tension inside the cabin lingered like static before a storm. Maya sat quietly in seat 2 Amperes, her fingers interlaced, eyes fixed on the horizon beyond the glass. The world outside moved, but inside, time felt deliberate. Carla, the senior attendant, approached again, this time with a tablet in her hands. Her voice was respectful, almost reverent. "Dr. Holt, the captain requests permission to speak with you before takeoff." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Permission?" she asked softly. Carla nodded, nervous. "He said he wants to make sure everything is settled." Maya exhaled slowly. "Very well." Moments later, Captain Reynolds stepped out of the cockpit, his uniform immaculate, his composure visibly strained. "Dr. Holt," he began, his tone even, "I understand there was an incident at the gate. Please accept my apology on behalf of the crew. It should never have happened." Maya's gaze met his, sharp but calm. "You are right. It should not have. But it did, and now it is your responsibility to ensure it does not happen again." He nodded, swallowing his pride. "Yes, ma'am. I assure you we are already addressing it internally." Maya leaned slightly forward. "Addressing it is not the same as fixing it. You cannot patch bias with policy alone. You have to train awareness into leadership, not just procedure." Her words hit harder than any reprimand. The captain stood there, absorbing the weight of them, then finally said, "Understood. I will report directly to the board." Maya nodded once. "Good. Then let us fly." He bowed his head slightly, more out of respect than protocol, and returned to the cockpit. Carla lingered, her eyes glistening slightly. "You know," she said quietly, "most people would have shouted. You did not." Maya turned her gaze back toward the window. Noise never changed anything. Power did. The plane began to taxi down the runway, and for a moment, all was still except the sound of wheels rolling over concrete. Passengers leaned back in their seats, some pretending to read, others pretending not to stare at her. Maya could feel their curiosity pressing in from every direction. Some admired her restraint, others feared her composure. One older woman across the aisle caught her eye and whispered, "Thank you for standing up." Maya smiled faintly. Standing up is only the beginning. The engines roared louder, and as the plane lifted into the sky, Her assistant's voice buzzed softly through her earpiece again. "Doctor." "Holt, I have updates," the voice said. "Corporate received multiple recordings from passengers. It is trending already number gate C12. Maya sighed. "So it is a story now," the assistant replied. "Yes, but not just that. A statement from the airline's CEO is being drafted. They want to acknowledge you directly." Maya's tone was firm but calm. "Tell them to skip the photo op. I am not interested in sympathy. I am interested in systems." The assistant hesitated, then said, "Understood." For a few moments, Maya sat in silence, watching clouds drift past like fragments of memory. The hum of the aircraft was steady, rhythmic, almost meditative. But beneath that calm, she could feel something stirring, a quiet anger wrapped in purpose. She remembered the times she had been told to wait, to tone down, to make others comfortable at the expense of her own worth. Those days were gone. The intercom chimed, breaking her thoughts. "This is your captain speaking. We are now at cruising altitude. You are free to move about the cabin." Maya turned to Carla, who had returned with a glass of water. "Thank you," she said. "And Carla, make sure that young attendant Jordan gets recognition for what he did today. Courage should not go unnoticed." Carla nodded firmly. "I will personally make sure of it." Maya looked out the window again, the light reflecting off the wing. "Good," she murmured. "Then maybe we are starting to climb for the right reasons." The clouds parted, sunlight flooding the cabin, and for the first time since the chaos began, Maya allowed herself to breathe. The world below shrank, but her resolve only grew larger. This was no longer about a single flight. It was about rewriting the altitude of respect itself. The plane had reached 35,000 feet, but the air inside the cabin still carried an invisible weight. Maya could feel it, the curiosity, the whispers, the quiet awe from passengers who had seen what happened at Gate C12. Some avoided her eyes, unsure whether to apologize or simply stay silent. Others glanced at her with quiet respect. The flight attendants moved carefully, their professionalism tinged with something new, accountability. Carla approached with a discreet nod. "Dr. Holt," she said softly, "we have been asked to collect a brief statement for the captain's report. Corporate wants your version of events on record." Maya looked up from her tablet, her voice even. "Tell them the truth. That will be enough." Carla hesitated. "And if they try to spin it?" Maya smiled faintly. "Then they will learn the cost of rewriting someone else's story." Carla nodded and walked away, the gravity of Maya's words lingering in the narrow aisle. Outside, clouds stretched endlessly, white and soft against the deep blue. Maya turned back to her tablet, but her thoughts slipped elsewhere to the years of boardrooms where she was the only black woman in the room, where her ideas were credited to someone else until they succeeded, where her calm was mistaken for compliance. She had built her company not to prove a point, but to create something unshakable, a system no one could shut down with bias or ignorance. Her assistant's voice came through her earpiece again. "Dr. Holt, the airline's CEO, Mr. Bryant, just sent a direct message. He wants to set up a video conference after landing. He says he owes you an explanation." Maya's tone was dry but calm. "He owes his passengers an explanation. I already know mine." The assistant chuckled softly. "You always know exactly where the line is," Maya replied. "That is because I have spent my life being told to stay behind it." A sudden chime interrupted her thought, the captain's voice returning over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We have just received notice from corporate operations that we will be diverting briefly to verify documentation related to our earlier boarding delay. Please remain seated." Passengers murmured in confusion. Maya's eyes narrowed. "Verification," she whispered to herself. Carla reappeared, concern on her face. "Dr. Holt, I think corporate is trying to minimize this. They want to frame it as a system malfunction." Maya's calm expression hardened. "No, they will not bury it under technical jargon." She stood, her voice low but commanding. "Open the in-flight communication channel. I want to speak to the captain directly." Carla hesitated only a second before nodding. Within moments, Maya was standing near the cockpit door. The captain turned, surprised but composed. "Dr. Holt, I did not expect—" Maya interrupted him gently. "If you divert this flight to protect someone's ego, you are not correcting the problem. You are becoming it." The captain straightened, shame flickering across his features. "Understood, ma'am. I will log the event exactly as it occurred." Maya nodded. "Good." The truth should not need altitude clearance. She returned to her seat as the plane leveled out again, the passengers sensing a shift they could not quite name. Carla whispered, "You just stopped them from hiding it." Maya's gaze remained fixed ahead. Justice does not need permission to stay airborne. The clouds outside glowed with streaks of orange as the sun began to set, painting the sky in colors that looked like resolve itself. For the first time that day, Maya allowed herself to rest her head against the seat. The world below was still learning, but up here, above the noise and doubt, truth finally had room to fly. The plane began its descent toward Washington, D.C., the seatbelt sign glowing softly above the rows of weary passengers. But Maya was not tired. Her mind was alive with the clarity that comes after confrontation, the kind of calm that only comes when truth has already broken the surface. The sunset painted the clouds gold, and for a moment, the reflection on her window looked almost like a crown of light. Carla approached quietly with a phone in her hand, the cord tucked discreetly behind her sleeve. "Dr. Holt, the airline's CEO, Mr. Bryant, is requesting to speak with you now through the secure line. He says it is urgent." Maya's expression did not change. "Put him through." The small screen lit up with the familiar corporate logo before a man's voice filled the air, deep, smooth, and practiced. "Dr. Holt, this is Alan Bryant. I wanted to personally apologize for the situation earlier. It seems there was a misunderstanding between our gate staff and the verification system." Maya's tone was even, polite, but cold. A misunderstanding does not humiliate a person. People do. "Let us start there." The line went silent for a beat. Bryant exhaled audibly. "You are right, and I take full responsibility for what happened under my company's roof. Please know we are taking immediate corrective action." Maya leaned slightly forward in her seat. "Mr. Bryant, responsibility is not an apology read into a microphone. It is policy reform, visible and enforceable. What happened today was not isolated. It was systemic. And systems do not change through sympathy." Bryant hesitated. "We are aware of that, which is why I would like to invite you to lead a joint review panel with our internal compliance team. We could use your expertise to make sure this never happens again." Maya allowed a pause, her silence deliberate. "Mr. Bryant, if you are serious, then the first thing you will do is release a public acknowledgement of what really happened. Call it what it was. Racial profiling. No euphemisms, no spin. Just truth." There was another long silence on the line, followed by a low sigh. "That will cause backlash," Bryant admitted. Maya's tone did not waver. "So did slavery, yet we still had to face it." The flight attendants standing nearby glanced at each other, stunned by the force in her voice, steady but unstoppable. Bryant finally spoke again, softer this time. "You have my word. We will make it right," Maya replied. "Good, because I intend to hold you to it." The call ended. Carla watched her, admiration clear in her eyes. "Do you think he means it?" Maya looked out the window, the city lights of D.C. beginning to glimmer below like scattered constellations. "Intentions are fragile. Action is proof." The captain's voice returned over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing shortly. Please prepare for arrival." As the plane descended, the weight of the day settled like gravity returning after orbit. The murmurs among passengers had shifted from curiosity to quiet reverence. They knew they had witnessed something significant, something larger than an argument at a gate. It was a lesson in grace under fire. The landing gear lowered with a soft rumble, and Maya closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the faces of those who had stood silently in that terminal, watching prejudice play out in real time. Some filmed it, some said nothing, but they all saw it. And seeing was the first step toward change. When the wheels touched down, applause broke out spontaneously, not loud, not forced, just human. Carla smiled. "You grounded them," she whispered. Maya opened her eyes, her voice low but sure. "No, Carla, I lifted us." As the plane slowed to a smooth stop and the runway lights stretched ahead, one truth settled in the quiet between them. Justice did not always roar. Sometimes it landed. The terminal at Washington Dulles glowed under the evening lights as passengers began to disembark, the rhythm of rolling suitcases blending with the muffled hum of announcements. Maya waited until the last few travelers exited before standing, her movements calm, deliberate. Carla stood near the front, ready to assist. "Dr. Holt, A representative from the airline board is waiting at the gate, she said softly. Maya gave a short nod. Let us meet them. As she stepped into the jet bridge, the air felt heavier, filled with a strange mix of caution and anticipation. At the end of the walkway stood two people in dark suits, a woman with a corporate badge clipped neatly to her jacket, and a man holding a tablet already recording notes. The woman extended her hand with a practiced smile. Dr. Holt, I am Dana Quinn, Senior Operations Director for Horizon Air. I want to personally apologize. Maya cut her off gently but firmly. Apologies are for etiquette. I am here for accountability. Dana's smile faltered. Of course, we understand this situation has escalated rapidly. It has already gone viral. The footage from the gate is being circulated online. Maya tilted her head slightly. Good. Then the world can see what quiet discrimination looks like in real time. The man with the tablet shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Holt, corporate communications would like to know if you plan to issue a public statement. It might help. Help who? Maya interrupted, her tone steady but sharp. Me? Or the company that allowed it to happen? The man hesitated, his fingers hovering over the screen. We simply want to manage the narrative. Maya took one step closer. The narrative is already written. You just have to decide if you are going to learn from it or hide from it. Her voice did not rise, but every syllable carried weight. Behind her, Carla stood quietly, eyes wide, absorbing every word. A few feet away, a small group of airport staff had gathered, whispering. Some had seen the video, others were only now realizing who she was. Maya turned slightly toward them, her expression softening. I am not here to embarrass anyone. I am here to remind you what respect looks like in uniform. Dana exhaled slowly. Dr. Holt, we have already suspended the gate agent involved pending investigation. We are also scheduling a full review of our diversity and training protocols. Maya regarded her carefully. Start with your hiring policies. Training does not fix what bias builds. Dana nodded, taking notes. Understood, Maya continued. And include your contractors, not just employees. Discrimination outsourced is still discrimination delivered. The woman blinked, caught off guard by the precision of her words. We will, she said finally. Maya adjusted her bag on her shoulder and looked toward the exit. Then you know where to reach me. Dana hesitated. One last question, Dr. Holt. The world is already talking about this about you. What do you want them to take away from it? Maya paused, her gaze distant but focused. That silence is not grace. It is complicity, and that dignity does not ask for permission to exist. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Even the sound of distant luggage belts seemed to slow. Dana lowered her head slightly in acknowledgement. We will do better, she said quietly. You will be watched, Maya replied, not as a threat but as truth. With that, she walked past them toward the main concourse. Her heels echoed against the polished floor, each step measured, each one a reminder that justice did not always arrive in a courtroom. Sometimes, it walked through a gate, calm and undeniable. Outside, flashes of cameras caught her silhouette against the terminal glass. Reporters shouted questions, but she did not stop. She simply turned her head, eyes steady, and said one final line that silenced the noise around her. Change does not start in policy. It starts in people. Then she disappeared into the night, leaving the echo of her words to do what truth always does, spread. The following morning, sunlight poured through the glass walls of the Horizon Air headquarters in downtown Washington, D.C., glinting off chrome fixtures and polished floors. The building was quiet except for the steady rhythm of footsteps approaching the executive boardroom. Inside, a long table stretched across the space, lined with faces that looked tense, expectant, and just a little afraid. Maya entered without a sound. Every conversation stopped. Alan Bryant, the airline's CEO, stood immediately, his expression controlled but uneasy. Dr. Holt, he said, his voice careful, thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. Maya set her folder on the table and looked directly at him. This was not a request, she said evenly. When bias becomes company policy, reform does not wait for convenience. The words sliced through the air like a clean cut. The board members exchanged nervous glances. Maya continued, her tone calm but unyielding. I am not here to hear apologies. I am here to ensure that what happened at Gate C-12 never happens again, not to me, not to anyone who looks like me, and not under your logo. She opened her folder, revealing printed screenshots of the viral footage now circulating online. The images showed Janet at the counter, pointing Maya toward the economy line, the caption reading, "Black CEO ordered to step aside." The video had millions of views, thousands of comments, and headlines across every major outlet. Maya slid the papers forward. "This is your brand now," she said, "unless you change it." Alan cleared his throat. "We are prepared to take action," he said, trying to sound in control. "Effective immediately, the staff involved have been terminated. We are launching a comprehensive review of all gate operations," Maya interrupted softly. "That is reaction, not reform. What is your policy on preventative accountability? Who audits your culture before it makes the news?" Alan hesitated. "We do not have an external auditor for bias compliance." Maya nodded slowly. "Then you will. Starting today." She handed him a second document, an outline for a program titled Flight Forward Initiative, created overnight by her team. "You will adopt this framework across all branches," she continued. "Diversity oversight, equity reporting, and anonymous employee feedback channels. No exceptions." One of the board members, a woman in her 40s, leaned forward. "Dr. Holt, implementing something like this would take months, possibly longer." "Then start now," Maya said, her tone quiet but absolute. "Every delay costs another person their dignity. That is not a metric you can afford." Silence fell over the room. Even the hum of the air conditioning felt distant. Alan finally spoke again, his voice lower now. "Dr. Holt, would you consider joining us as a formal advisor for this initiative?" Maya met his eyes. "I do not consult for redemption. I build accountability. If you want change, make it structural." Alan exhaled, his pride giving way to sincerity. "Then help us do it right." Maya regarded him for a long moment, then nodded once. "I will oversee the rollout for 6 months. After that, it must sustain itself. If it collapses, it means you never wanted it to stand." She gathered her papers and rose from the table. "The world is already watching," she added, her voice like a steady drumbeat. "Do not make them watch another failure." As she walked toward the door, Alan called after her softly. "Dr. Holt, one last thing. What made you stop that flight yesterday instead of just walking away?" Maya turned slightly, her profile outlined by the morning light. "Because I have walked away before," she said. "And every time I did, someone else paid the price." With that, she left the boardroom in silence, her footsteps echoing like punctuation marks of truth. Outside, the city buzzed with headlines carrying her name, but Maya did not stop to read them. She simply looked up at the clear blue sky and thought, this is what it feels like when justice finally takes off. 3 weeks later, the headquarters of Holt Aerodynamics in Atlanta was a controlled storm of activity. The Flight Forward initiative that Maya had forced into existence was no longer a proposal. It was a blueprint being implemented across multiple airlines. The walls of her office were covered with digital screens displaying real-time reports from airports nationwide, each one tracking compliance data, diversity metrics, and staff retraining progress. Her assistant, Nia Thompson, stood by her desk holding a tablet. "Dr. Holt, you are trending again," she said with a half-smile. "CNN just aired a segment on the Gate C-12 reforms. They are calling it the Maya Holt Standard." Maya did not look up from her laptop. "Trends fade," she said quietly. "Systems stay. Make sure they stay." Nia nodded. "We have also received over 200 applications from pilots and crew members asking to join our independent audit team. Some of them were even from Horizon Air itself." Maya allowed herself a small, approving nod. "That means they are learning, not because they were told to, but because they want to." The office phone buzzed, and Nia pressed the intercom. "Alan Bryant on line 1. Maya paused for a moment, then answered, "Mr. Bryant." His voice came through, steady but humbled. "Dr. Holt, I wanted you to be the first to know. We have completed the first phase of implementation. Every employee has undergone the new anti-profiling certification, and we have publicly released our audit reports for transparency." Maya leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Good. That is the start. But remember, accountability does not expire. Keep it active." Alan hesitated. "We will, and I wanted to say thank you for not walking away." Maya's voice softened slightly. "I did not do it for you, Alan. I did it for the passengers who no longer have to question whether they belong." The line went quiet, then clicked off. Nia smiled faintly. "You know, Doctor, Holt, people online are calling you the woman who grounded an entire flight to lift an entire system. Maya chuckled under her breath. If that is what it takes to keep dignity in the air, I will ground 100 more. Her phone vibrated again, this time with an alert from Horizon's legal department. She opened the document. It was a full internal memo from the investigation team. The report revealed that the gate agent who had humiliated her, Janet, had filed a written apology. But more than that, Janet had volunteered to join the retraining program as a trainee advocate. Nia read over her shoulder. Do you believe it is genuine? Maya closed the document, her tone reflective. Growth never looks graceful, but it starts somewhere. She stood, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Outside, planes traced silver lines across the clear blue sky. You know what I see when I look at those contrails? She asked. Nia shook her head. What? Maya smiled faintly. Proof that movement leaves a mark, so we better make sure it is one worth following. At that moment, her phone buzzed again this time, with a message from the U.S. Department of Transportation. They wanted to collaborate on expanding her reform program nationwide. Maya turned to Nia, eyes alight with purpose. Get the board on the line. Tell them we are not just changing one airline. We are rewriting aviation ethics. Nia grinned. On it, ma'am. As Maya returned to her desk, the sunlight caught the framed article from years earlier, the one that once called her the quiet engineer behind the engines. She smiled, remembering how it all started. Quiet was never weakness. It was focus. And today, focus had become change. She picked up her pen, signed the new federal partnership proposal, and whispered under her breath, let them fly higher, but fair. Outside, the city roared with life, and somewhere above, a plane lifted into the sky, its engines powered by Holt aerodynamics, its culture powered by her resolve. 2 months later, the world had changed in ways even Maya had not fully anticipated. The Flight Forward initiative had evolved from a corporate reform plan into a national framework for equity in aviation. Every major airline across the country had either adopted or publicly endorsed her program, and the Department of Transportation had made it a federal model for inclusive travel standards. News outlets called it the Holt Reform, and documentaries were already being planned. Yet inside her Atlanta office, Maya remained composed, almost quiet, as always. Nia entered carrying a folder full of press requests. Dr. Holt, you have invitations from 3 networks, 1 late-night show, and a keynote request from Harvard Business School. They all want to hear the story behind Gate C-12. Maya looked up from her desk, her expression thoughtful. They want a headline, she said softly. But what they need is a standard. Nia smiled knowingly. That is exactly what you always say. Maya stood and walked toward the large digital wall displaying live updates from participating airlines. The map was covered with blinking green lights, each one representing a completed reform site. How many? She asked. 72 airports, Nia replied proudly. 0 incidents of reported discrimination since the new protocols launched. Maya let out a quiet breath. Then the silence we hear today is the kind we can live with. She turned back toward her desk as her phone buzzed again, an incoming video call from Alan Bryant. She answered. Alan's face appeared on the screen, visibly lighter than before. Dr. Holt, he said warmly, I wanted to give you an update personally. The reforms have not only improved our internal metrics, but also increased passenger satisfaction across the board. Horizon Air is stronger because of this. Maya nodded. Then you finally understand that equality is not charity. It is efficiency. Alan smiled. You were right about that, and I wanted you to know, Janet, the former gate agent, just completed the full certification. She is now leading diversity training for our Western branches. Maya paused, visibly surprised. Then she found her purpose after all. Alan nodded. She did, and she asked me to tell you something. She said, tell Dr. Holt thank you for giving me the chance to learn what respect really means. For the first time in days, Maya's eyes softened. That, she said quietly, is worth more than any headline. Alan nodded, smiling, then ended the call. Nia stood silently for a moment before saying, do you ever stop to think about how far this has gone? One gate turned into a global shift. Maya glanced at the window, the Atlanta skyline glowing in the late afternoon Sunday. I do, she said. But this was never just about an airline. It was about the air itself, what fills it. who gets to move through it freely, and who gets told to step aside. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from an international carrier in London requesting to implement her program overseas. Nia's eyes widened. Europe? Maya smiled faintly. It seems fairness has no borders. She walked toward the window, her reflection merging with the sky beyond. Do you know what justice sounds like, Nia? She asked softly. It does not shout. It hums, quietly, consistently, like engines that never quit. Nia nodded slowly. So what is next, Dr. Holt? Maya turned, her gaze steady. We keep it running, because dignity should never be delayed. Outside, another plane climbed into the sky, its engines steady, its path clean. For once, every passenger aboard it was equal not by exception, but by design. Maya watched it until it disappeared into the clouds, her voice low but resolute. That is how we know we are finally flying right. 6 months later, the annual Aviation Leadership Summit filled a grand hall in downtown Chicago, its stage framed by massive glass windows overlooking the city skyline. Executives, policymakers, and journalists from around the world had gathered, their badges reading a single shared theme, equity in motion. At the center of the stage stood Maya Holt, poised behind a sleek black podium embossed with the seal of the Department of Transportation. The crowd fell silent as she adjusted the microphone. 6 months ago, she began, her voice measured, steady. One gate, one decision, and one line drawn in prejudice forced us all to look in the mirror. What began as humiliation became transformation, not because the world suddenly got kinder, but because accountability finally took flight. Cameras flashed, but Maya did not flinch. We have built systems that run on fuel and data, but for too long we ignored the system that runs on respect. Dignity cannot be optional. Fairness cannot be upgraded like a seat class. It must be standard, everywhere. The room erupted into applause, but she lifted a hand gently, signaling for quiet. Today, 47 airlines across 3 continents have adopted the Flight Forward initiative. Incidents of discriminatory behavior have dropped by 78%. That is progress, but progress is not peace. The goal is not just to prevent harm. The goal is to build environments where equality is instinct, not instruction. Her words carried through the hall, precise, calm, and unshakable. Behind her, a large screen displayed a timeline from Gate C12 to global reform. Some people still ask me, she continued, why I did not raise my voice that day, why I did not shout or threaten or demand. The truth is simple. I did not need to. Power does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers and everything still moves. The audience leaned in, captivated. Maya's gaze swept across the faces before her executives, students, pilots, janitors, all listening. We live in a world that loves noise, panic, outrage, spectacle, but justice works differently. It moves quietly, patiently, until one act of courage turns into a chain reaction. A woman in the front row, an airline trainee, wiped her eyes. Maya smiled softly. So, if you ever find yourself told to step aside, remember this. Stepping aside is not always surrender. Sometimes it is strategy. Sometimes it is the step you take right before you lead. The crowd rose in unison, a standing ovation that filled the hall like thunder. Yet Maya stayed composed, her hand resting lightly on the podium, her eyes reflecting gratitude without ego. When the applause finally quieted, she spoke one last time, her voice calm but resonant. 6 months ago, I grounded a flight. Today, I am watching an industry take off differently. We did not just change procedures, we changed perception. And that, she paused, is the kind of altitude humanity was meant to reach. As she stepped down from the stage, the audience continued to applaud. Outside, through the towering glass windows, a plane ascended into the evening sky, its wings catching the light like a promise. Maya stopped for a moment to watch it climb higher and higher, her reflection blending with its path. Naya approached from behind and whispered, "They are saying this summit will go down in history." Maya turned, her expression calm, resolute. "History is just the story of what we choose to fix," she said. "Now, let us keep fixing it." The camera flash caught her mid-step, framed in gold light calm, unbreakable, unstoppable. And as the doors closed behind her, one truth remained clear. She had not just grounded a flight. She had lifted the standard for everyone who would ever walk through another gate again.